You're listening to Riding Home, your trustworthy evening source of news and information.
Now, today is, of course, Chuseok, or the Autumn Harvest Festival, and it's one of those celebrations where families here in Korea get together to spend some quality time. And speaking of family, we thought it might be a good time here at Riding Home to focus on our multicultural families that are living here in South Korea. Now, we know that the government has been focusing a lot on welfare policies in recent months and has given more attention and support for foreigners and multicultural families here in Korea. So to be more of a bit of help to others out there who may be new to the nation, we have three very special guests who are joining us here in the studio today who will share their stories and experiences. So we have Mr. Gregory Diggs Yang, who is the president of the MAC Foundation, Mr. Aiden Hammond, who is a teacher at Seoul National University, and Ms. Serene Shin. She's a part-time mother and she also works at Hanyang University. So we have three guests here. Welcome to the studio. It's wonderful to have you here.
Hi.
Hi, thank you.
It's actually the first time that we've had three guests joining us, so it's very special for us here at Riding Home as well. So let's go around and I guess for our listeners, can you introduce yourselves to us? I guess starting with Mr. Gregory Diggs Yang.
Okay. Well, actually, I go by Chanuk usually.
Okay, Chanuk.
Yeah, Chanuk. I am the president of the MAC Foundation, and the MAC Foundation was founded in 1995 and kind of revamped under my, I guess, administration, if you want to call it, in 1999. So we focus on three major projects through the foundation. One is the educational mission, where we help education for multicultural children, especially sponsoring the Amerasian Christian Academy in Dongducheong. And our second project is Mix, which is where we kind of allow mixed Koreans that have returned back to Korea to kind of get together and meet and, you know, kind of share experiences. And the last one is the Renaissance KID, which stands for Korean Internal Diversity. And that's where we're trying to help educate society about the growing diversity of Koreans in Korea and ways that we can kind of change the attitudes and thinking towards that to be more accepting to that.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about your foundation later, but let's get our introductions here first. Ms. Serene Shin, can you introduce yourself to us?
Hi, everyone. I'm Serene Shin. I'm Malaysian Chinese. Basically, I was married to a Korean 3 years ago and with two kids, one girl and one boy. International age will be two years and 9 months. Yeah.
So they're very young.
They are very young, and at the same time, I was working in Hanyang University right now.
And Mr. Aiden Hammond, can you introduce yourself to us?
Okay, hi everyone. I've been living in Korea now for over a decade. I've been married for most of that time. We have a little boy, and just recently, since we've had a little boy, we've been starting to think more about the issues of multiculturalism and also raising somebody in this kind of culture and living in that kind of situation.
Right. Chanuk, do you have any kids?
No, I don't.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned you have a boy and a girl?
Yeah, the first one will be the daughter, and the second one will be a boy.
And you have a boy.
Yeah.
Right. I have a little boy at home as well. He's just 8 months now. So, I mean, of course, I'm not in a multicultural family, but I wonder, though, how is it like living in Korea as a multicultural family? Chanu.
Well, I guess, you know, I don't really fall into that multicultural family because I'm kind of the family of one right now, right?
But you work with multicultural families.
Yeah, I do. And with, you know, a lot of it right now, just from the families that I work with, it really kind of depends on their socioeconomic situation in Korea. I find that the ones that kind of don't really have much of a social and economic problem, a lot of times they don't experience some of the same issues that some of the other underprivileged families are. So from my experiences, it just kind of depends on their socioeconomics. Yeah.
What do you think, Serene?
I agree with what he said because a lot of people, especially girls who are married to Korean, they are not really a financial stable sometimes, so they will be facing a social financial problem,
right,
as well as a language problem as well at the first stage. So I think the most important thing or the think the face will be something like what he said as well. And the culture.
Right.
There will be a big culture between the West and the Korean culture and the Southeast Asia part as well.
Right. Your children, they aren't school age yet, right?
I send them to the childcare.
Childcare?
Yes.
How is that? When they go to childcare, do they know that they're different from other kids?
They do not know that they are different, but the other children will tell them they are different because
Really?
at first I taught them in English, and so she is happy to speaking English. But after some time, she will not use her English at all, but instead of Korean.
Oh.
Yes, because I understand from the teacher, they say that even they speak English in the school, other kids will not be able to understand what they say.
Right.
So I think that's one thing that we need to figure out.
So do you speak English mostly at home?
I speak English and Chinese with my both kids.
And does your husband speak Korean?
My husband mix sometimes English, sometimes Korean.
Oh, so your children must be learning 3 different languages at home. What do they feel most comfortable with?
Currently, their mother tongue will be still in Korean, then
Korean.
followed by English or Chinese.
What about you, Aiden? Your boy, how old is he?
He's almost 4.
Almost 4. So
Yeah.
do you send him to daycare as
Yeah,
well?
he goes to daycare every day. When he was, both my wife and I worked, so when he was first born, we had a babysitter. She came pretty much every day and kind of took care of him. She spoke Korean to him, like she didn't speak any English. He goes to a daycare now that they have some kind of English stuff, but it's really just, like a added on kind of thing. It's not like an English hagwon or anything like that.
Right. So does he enjoy it? Does he feel like he's different?
It depends on the situation. I think the school that he goes to, they're really supportive, and there's 1 or 2 biracial kids that have either attended there or are there right now, and so generally it's a pretty positive environment there. It's also a really small school. Like I think his class only has like 7 or 8 kids in it, so it's it's a really comfortable place for him. But outside of school, I mean, that's where he gets most of the attention, I guess, and stuff. So, and actually just today I was telling Chanuk, like we were I was walking him to school because they're having a Chuseok party.
Right.
And he had to wear his hanbok.
Right.
So he and I are walking down the street with him. I'm holding his hand. He's got his hanbok on, and we walked past another school with some other kids, and they all turned and looked at him and were like, "Oh, why are you wearing the hanbok? And what's the reason for wearing the hanbok?
Right.
And you're not Korean, but you're wearing a hanbok. Isn't that interesting?" and stuff. And I think that kind of gets to him because he gets a lot of that attention. Yeah.
So not necessarily positive attention.
Well, it's not negative, right? It's not in a bad way. It's a lot of attention, and when you don't want attention all the time, like you want to just walk to school or you want to just be by yourself on the subway and stuff, sometimes that really kind of gets to them.
Right. Do you think there's a lot of difficulties maybe compared to living in the US or living in other Western countries or even maybe where you're from? Do you think it's more difficult for multicultural families here in Korea than in other countries?
Well, again, just from my perspective,
It depends.
it just really depends on finances, where you are in your social status and things. I mean, just kind of piggybacking off of what Aiden said, and even what our other guest said. A lot of the stuff we look at with the kids and how they're the language issue. Even in the States, my research and friends out there, they all say, in the States, their parents tried to teach them Korean, and then they just cut it off because the language that was used in that place was English. And now in Korea, it's the same thing. I mean, so we kind of make it an issue like, we have to force them to do this, but it's just kind of what naturally happens because, and then eventually you start to use it at home, and as they get a little older, they kind of, learn how to use both. And the same thing with walking with her. Even in the States now, I walk with my oma down the street or in a mall, and we just get stares.
Right.
And it was probably better when I was younger because usually for mixed Koreans, we don't really have our standout features until about middle school. And that's when all of our features start kicking in, and you can see that there's a clear difference. When they're younger, you're kind of like, maybe they're just a funny looking kid, right? So, I mean, even in both of those situations, I think those things are just kind of naturally what's happening. And I guess what we I guess what we want society to do